loafa or like a loafer or something. Just using that as a microphone just because.
Oh yeah, you got a shoe, honey?
Don't do it, don't do it.
She just suggested that I might be using a leather loafer as a microphone. I haven't had that many glasses of wine yet, but you know.
Oh, you're doing some muting.
All right. Oh, we're ticking up there. We have 36 people in attendance. Hello, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Just as you're coming in, just know that we can't hear you or see you. You can hear and see us. We'll do some housekeeping at the beginning, but if you, once we start sharing the screen, you're able to reduce the gallery view. I'll show you how to do that when we get started. Just a couple more minutes and kick it off. It is rather weird. So none of us are going to be able to hear, you know, the nice applause, you know, after your talk. So, you know, if the participants want to mute themselves and then unmute themselves or yourself, you know, after the presenter, because like if there's any background noise, like if Chrystina's dog Max barks while Amy is speaking, it'll probably go to Chrystina. So make sure that when someone comes up, when whoever's speaking, you mute your own presentation, and then unmute. We can snap, we can clap for each other, that kind of thing. Scott Whiting is clapping in the sidebar. Thanks, Scott. Oh, and Stefan Romantis is here.
Frank might be with her too, Ben.
And Frank might be with her too. Steffa, is Frank with you? We're up to 45 people and it is 7 o'clock. And Frank is in the room with Steffa. Yay. So that means we should be able to go. Frank said I could start. Okay, well, I'm going to start by sharing the screen. Oops, wait, I got to do something else. This might be where it gets awkward for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, we go here. Share that, there it is. Okay, alrighty. So here we are. Welcome to the first virtual PechaKucha night, Biddeford. I am Tammy Ackerman, the Executive Director of Engine, and I'm very pleased to be here this evening with all of you in this weird environment that we're in right now. I hope all of you watching are well and staying safe and being cautious in this bizarre time that we're in. I personally have been so impressed with the amount of generosity and creativity shown by people in our community over the past few weeks from so many different angles, from the fundraising project that the Heart of Biddeford did, where they raised money to feed healthcare workers, and also at the same time support our closed restaurants, to local makers like Jessica Johnson, who are sewing masks and donating to frontline workers, and then to the plethora of artists that have been using this time to connect with their community through their unique talents. So as with many organizations like Engine, we've had to figure out how, you know, these new systems of connecting work, and, you know, it hasn't been without difficulty. But PechaKucha is one of the things that I thought that we could do that keeps us a little bit in front of the people that support us and that come to our events. So I'm really, really grateful that we're able to at least do this. We may not be able to sit shoulder to shoulder like we normally do in a packed, sometimes hot room, and we might not be able to see your smiling faces, but we look forward to doing that hopefully in the future, the not so distant future. So I also want to thank, before we get going, I want to thank all the presenters tonight. These 4 people were brave and decided that they could do this, and I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. A little housekeeping first. PechaKucha nights, if you haven't been to one, they use a 20 by 20 presentation format, which shows 20 chosen images, each for 20 seconds. In other words, the presenters have 400 seconds to tell their story very concisely, with visuals guiding the way. PechaKucha means chit chat in Japanese, and it's said a billion different ways, from PechaKucha to Machu Picchu to, just people don't know how to say it. This creative outlet began, excuse me, as nighttime get-togethers in Tokyo in 2003 by two renowned architects, Astrid Klein and Mark Ditham. And since then, 3 million people have attended PechaKucha events worldwide. So it's a big thing. And if you visit PechaKucha.com, you can see all kinds of presentations from just, people around the world. It's really quite fascinating. If you want to create your own PechaKucha to put up in front of the entire universe to see, it's pretty easy to do that these days. If you go to the PechaKucha Create part of their website, so PechaKucha.com/PK-Create. It's pretty easy. They've really made the mechanism easy for uploading your images, recording your audio, and then publishing your presentation. So I encourage people to do it. If you have a story to tell, do it. Let us know that you've done it, and we'll be happy to amplify it and share it out to the local community. Let's see here. So this is Chrystina. I'm going to assume my normal role as the person sitting behind the projector, the virtual projector tonight, who pushes the button to start the slides and all that good stuff. And I'm going to welcome to the virtual podium Chrystina Gastelum. Chrystina, first and foremost, is a friend of mine, and but also someone who has been involved with Engine for a few years as a volunteer. She and her partner, or actually husband, Sean Hasey, who's an artist locally, have been coming to Engine events for a long time. Chrystina can sometimes be spotted wearing crazy headgear or flowing costume level capes. She and Sean are truly invested in our downtown community. They operate a massage therapy business called Hark House in an old mill building right on Main Street. And they both utilize Engine studios that are above our current space. And they're also doing their fair share of supporting both of our excellent coffee shops and other local businesses here in town. So before we get rolling, and I welcome Chrystina to the podium, I just want to point out that there are, if the attendees are seeing the gallery view, of a bunch of all of us kind of spread out across the screen, you might want to hit the reduction button, which there's like 4 little icons at the top of, if you can see me, at the top of your screen, that reduce the window sizes for the presenters. That way you can see the entire slide up there. So here we go. I'm going to get ready to hit the button. Oh gosh, I got things out of order. Sorry, hang on a second, guys. I should have run through this, I guess. We have a workshop coming up this weekend on Saturday with Maya Williams, and it's for high school students. And it's from 2 to 4. It's going to be virtual. And she is a poet, an author, and a performer. Maya would love to work with high school students to talk about mental health and how it's portrayed in the media, but also it's an interactive workshop where she'll be asking students to share the poetry in their work. So if you know a high school student that maybe is bored or struggling with the current conditions that we're in, please point them that direction or send them to me. And I can, invite them to the workshop. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to mention too is the Artist Toolbox workshop coming up with Kim Bernard. Kim is an artist, a main artist, who is a real professional and has a lot of insight. And this is a great value. She's going to be doing 4 evenings virtually from Monday, May 18th through Thursday, the 21st, from 6 to 8 p.m. The total cost of the entire thing is $30. So you almost don't have an excuse if you're trying to up your business game as an artist. So that's coming up. And Caitlin Tebow, who is my administrative assistant, has been working really hard to put a bunch of workshops up on our website, which is at the bottom of the screen. Know that if we don't feel it's safe to have an in-person workshop, we will continue to postpone things, but there's a lot of interesting things kind of coming up that we had been planning. So there's that. All right, now that I mucked up the order and everything, I'm gonna go right to our presenters, and I am now going to welcome my friend Chrystina to the podium and let her do the first introduction. Yay, here we go.
Thank you, Tammy. I am delighted to be here, but do remember that I signed up for this mostly to be on City Theater's stage without having to audition, so hopefully we'll get invited back. Tonight's presenters are all artists discussing beginnings, and the stories that they're sharing are real-life, vulnerable stories of transformation. And so some of tonight's presentations include stories with content that may be sensitive for some viewers or listeners. The stories discuss beginnings and transformation, but also discuss the before story, which may include abuse, trauma, suicide, body image, and other similar topics. There are no explicit images or detailed accounts of violence or nudity, but the topics do come up. Please make a choice that feels safe and good for you and your family as you proceed with tonight's program. That being said, our first presenter needs no introduction for many of you. Did I see a note that said I need to speak up? No. Okay.
I can't look at the chat, so that might have, if someone else can look at the chat, I think one of the presenters can maybe see that.
Say it again if I need to do something.
So I do see the screen is only showing Amy's presentation, not Chrystina's. So it will show the presentation of the in the background, the lettering, and then if you have Chrystina in a little box in the upper right corner, that should be correct.
Okay, cool. So did that clear that up? All right, good. So our first presenter needs no introduction for many of you joining tonight, but I will try anyway. I first met Amy Stacey Curtis at another engine, PechaKucha, where I realized I didn't know her, but I knew of her work. I don't remember the content of our conversation, but I do remember that even though her speech was dramatically changed by her illness, Amy was incredibly engaging to talk to, and I felt immediately included in her world. Maya Angelou was right. They remember how you made them feel. This inclusive nature is a hallmark of her installation work, too. Amy has been a conceptual artist in Maine for decades, creating huge interactive pieces that require long hours of planning, resource gathering, cleaning, arranging, and importantly, audience engagement. Amy has been battling a neurological illness that we now know is undiagnosed Lyme disease gone wild. While she was attempting to get diagnosed and treated, a neurologist tried to determine whether she was experiencing schizophrenia. He asked if she thinks she's a superhero 3 times. She didn't tell him about the cape she wears to give her strength. He wouldn't get it. It flows behind her, it's long and purple. It has a gold and red butterfly with sequins and rhinestones. Curtis fights from Lyme in Maine, while the New England art community helps move her ambitious art forward. Illness be damned. Amy, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, here we go.
I did an 18-year project, 9 installation exhibits in 9 mills, 9 themes put in order toward 1998 when I was 28 years old, from experience exhibited in 2000 to memory in 2016. My other 20-year project was healing from chronic trauma and complex PTSD. After 19 years of other therapies, I did a year of eye movement desensitization reprocessing, or EMDR, while working on my last 2 exhibits. Counselors wondered if I unconsciously devised my art project to cope. That by keeping busy, I set aside things I couldn't yet process, like my brain knew what to do for how long, 18 years, before dealing with the hardest parts of my trauma. Each exhibit was 22 months of labor, research, development, pre-production, mill cleaning, installing, exhibiting, taking down, fitting everything at our house. 2 months of rest, a little postpartum, and bing, ready to start the next 22 months. Looking forward to working without a 22-month structure, I was already feeling sad about the 18 years being over and worried this postpartum might be hard. And what if I did do this long project to cope with my trauma? Would scary unknowns be released on top of big depression? So rather than wait while working on my memory exhibit, I did the EMDR, and I added more to my story, not just scary things I'd blocked out, but things I now understood differently, things I could now forgive. My brain thought I was ready. And I made a connection I hadn't made before. The duration of my trauma from when I was 7 to 25 was 18 years, the same length of my art project. My brain knew what to do for how long to keep me safe. After EMDR, I didn't know my trauma had had so much weight. About to install memory, I was adjusting to weightlessness, like lifting a gallon of milk and your arm shoots up because the jug's nearly empty. 9 million balloons attached to my back. After my 18-year art project, I did have postpartum for 10 weeks into January 2017, but it felt free from my past, rather just sadness about finishing, the kind of down lots of artists have after completing a big project. In February, I was back in my studio and loving the change. I didn't have to come up with 9 new ideas for a specific time, place, or theme. Ideas could just come when they came, forever. Then the bliss hit the fan. After 5 weeks of studio joy on March 7th, 2017, something was wrong. For 22 months, my brain would show me non-stop pictures and videos of my suicide. I was dead or ending my life over and over. My brain couldn't see anything else. I'd been suicidal many times. I'd attempted when I was 10. This was different. I didn't want to die. I had big plans to have no plans, to make let's see where this goes work, to spend unplanned time with my handsome Bill and dogs, to bounce with my 9 million balloons. I couldn't get these vivid images to stop from awake to asleep. This other had hijacked my brain, the imposter. The still me fought from when this started. I told Bill, doctors, counselors, hotline, emergency room. Psychologists in the psych wards kept saying they hadn't seen this before. Someone severely suicidal who just as severely wanted to live. I kept saying, I'm happy. I have plans. I've been depressed before. This doesn't feel like that. I think something's physically wrong with my brain. After 15 months of antipsychotic drugs, movement and speech disorder, and schizophrenia diagnosing doctors, a naturopath found untreated Lyme disease. It had attacked my brain, likely causing the suicidal images. Brain healing supplements got me back in my studio a little, my movement and speech less severe. But the images hadn't paused. It'd been 22 months. I had to make it stop. So from November through January 2019, I did electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT. After 16 ECT treatments, I woke with a different image in my mind. Then the imposter took over. The image was a close-up of my face, rainbow color spreading, the imposter touching one side of my brain. I tried forcing my brain to switch from suicides to this new image, and I could. What if I draw the image, bring it here? Will I strengthen it, make it easier to switch? The colors were extra tangible somethings to grab onto in my mind. They are for a reason. After I completed the drawing in February 2019, I saw my suicide about 100 times a day instead of nonstop. By May, 50 times. December, 20 times a day. Now 10 times a day. My brain knew what to do, what I should see, what I should make to keep me safe, to save my life again. I've taken back a lot of my brain. I've been presenting new concepts with a lot of help. It was Bill who noticed the nonstop suicidal images lasted as long as each solo biennial labor, 22 months. I don't know what that means, but I imagine my brain will tell me when I'm ready. Lindsay.
Thank you, Amy. They're all clapping for you at home for sure. Rebekah Lowell learned to draw and make up stories as a child, growing up in a house built by her father, surrounded by a field of wildflowers. She's now a grown-up author and illustrator with a love for the natural world. Her most recent degree is a Master of Fine Arts in Children's Literature and Illustration from Hollins University. She has since authored a middle grade novel, which you'll hear about in her PechaKucha. I first saw her work hanging on the walls of Elements in Biddeford, which, by the way, recently reopened for curbside. She happens to live right here in Biddeford with her husband, daughters, and their 3 cats. Her professional bio states that you might find her wandering outside and passing on the same wild Maine childhood that she enjoyed, but her best friend Brooke says that she's ready to greet you with a big meow while feeding a hungry caterpillar or saving a feral kitten so that they can flourish on their own. As a survivor of domestic abuse, Becca uses her art as recovery. Tonight, I have a dog. Tonight she discusses the transition between, as she artfully puts it, the walls of before and the road to after. Rebekah, are you ready?
Ready.
All right.
In 2013, I escaped a decade of domestic abuse and captivity, bringing my young daughters with me. The person I had married at age 21 had promised to keep me safe. That promise turned into a prison. With drastic help and a secret plan, we stepped out from darkness into a gray world of unknowns. Life before was predictable, closed in, calculated. Play by his rules and you were safe for the moment. But in this new world, all was strange. I had forgotten how to think for myself or make decisions. We moved to Caring Unlimited for support and to have a place of our own. The ocean, cold and quiet, offered comfort. The open space was a stark contrast to the confining walls of before. In this new life, we felt a little lost, but at least here we could lose ourselves in the rhythm of the waves. Each stone thrown into the waters was another hurt spoken tossed out to sea. After he had been in jail for several months, I faced him at the criminal trial where he faced charges of kidnapping, assault, domestic violence, stalking, and terrorizing. Only 8 counts though, not even one for each year he wouldn't let me leave home unescorted by him. While testifying on the stand for 2 days, the DA stacked my journals high in front of me for the court to see. Confiscated by state police, then read in judges' chambers, words redacted, pages torn, the court decided my journals held too much evidence to sift through, so they were never officially entered. Art school had been where I'd left off when my life became his, so I chose to return to school and pursue a master's degree in children's literature. My daughters and I took to the road, and the timing was perfect because it was just before he was released from jail. Our trip placed miles between us. Nestled between the Appalachian and Blue Ridge Mountains is Hollins University, a place I found to be nourishing, safe, and inspiring. Welcoming us with open arms, the faculty and staff bent over backwards to accommodate us, still reeling from trauma. In the sanctuary of Hollins, I began to explore our past in words and images. Bits and pieces came to me in gritty drawings and picture book poetry, but this story was not picture book material. It needed to be told, but how? I kept sketching and scribbling. After my first summer session, we returned to Maine and continued recovering at Caring Unlimited and being out in nature. My story still was forming. It wasn't ready yet. Collins would be my respite for the next 5 summers of classes, but Maine was home. Upon reading Brown Girl Dreaming by Jackie Woodson, I noticed that my writing felt like verse and realized my story was for an older audience. I had found my medium, the middle grade novel in verse. In preparation for writing my own, I read as many as I could. In these books, the narrative is told in poetry instead of prose. In February of 2017, I wrote 1,000 words each day and completed my first draft. The next summer, I hired a professor from Holland to help me edit, and part of that process meant laying out my novel on these tables. As I walked to the room with my story laid out, tears fell, reading words I had forgotten. After signing with my agent, she and I completed several more rounds of revisions, which included weaving in Frances Hodgson Burnett's The Secret Garden as a parallel text. The way in which nature heals in that novel resonates with mine. Having a cute revision buddy helped the process along. When working through painful experiences, returning to nature for renewal always grounds me. The fields of my childhood remind me who I was before my world changed. I can't think of a better reason to relive my past than for the hope that one day my book will help another. The Rachel Carson Loop has also become a favorite place. The natural world offers a soothing quiet that heals unlike anything else. And it's often in these moments that lines of verse find their way into my mind. The outdoors offers an incomparable, vast freedom. Without the support of family and friends, I wouldn't be here now. My parents and siblings encouraged, babysat, and supported us along the way. In 2016, I was remarried to my sweet husband, Scott, who lets me be who I am. In all my long work hours and creative chaos, he stands by me. The day my book sold to Nancy Paulson at Penguin Random House is one I'll never forget. The hurtful words echoed in my mind, "You will never be published," unexpectedly and uninvited, but they were quickly replaced with the joy of knowing the truth. And now I'll finish by reading from my novel called The Road to Actor. Part 1, the first step. Thunder banging on the door, voices yelling like lightning, but Daddy already left for work. A loud crack tells me the door to outside is wide open. Light pours in. Who's here? I dash to the edge of the stairs, peeking down. "Mac here, boy," I whisper. My heart pounds. "Where's Mac?" "Casey," says Mama, running up. "Get ready, we have to go." I freeze. Pepe and Meme are here to help us leave. "No, we're not supposed to go anywhere. We're not supposed to leave. We never leave here without Daddy." "Now," Mama pleads and tosses a bag to me. "Put on your shoes." Shoes mean outside. Tall men in black boots fill the house. Footsteps thud, crash, crack, like a storm. Their metal badges try to shine in the shadows of this dim room, but the dark brown fabric pinned over the windows keeps out the light like Daddy wants. I stare at them, at their guns. Daddy wears his on a sling or leaves it in the fruit bowl. "You have 5 minutes," a man warns. As much as I can, as quick as I can, I cram things into a bag from the dresser that we all share. My hands shake. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebekah. This is hard without a room,
Oh,
but I'm really glad you're doing it. Thank you so much.
hang on, I totally forgot Nick's title. Sorry, Nick. This is the dorky stuff that I was afraid I would do. But you're gonna have to say your title after Chrystina introduces you.
All right. So our next presenter is Nicholas Reichard, who is a photographer, a thru hiker, a husband, and a dad, among other things. Apparently, it's pretty easy to get a good vibe off of Nick because his first date with Lindsay, his wife, was an overnight camping trip on the Appalachian Trail, which she admits in hindsight may not have been the safest idea. But it worked out. She describes Nick as totally in his element on the trail. He's confident but not arrogant, and he's patient, kind, and knowledgeable teacher who can lead you through packing and pitching a super lightweight tent and taking care of business in the most eco-friendly way possible. We may have more in common with a thru hiker than we think these days. We get excited about riding in cars and eating vegetables. We're bathing less often. And everyone is learning how to cut their own hair, treat their own wounds, and find creative alternatives for toilet paper. So Nick, or Click, as he was known on the trail, is on a mission to unite the arts with the outdoors. Lindsay, his wife, describes his style as gritty, raw, and real, a departure from the oversaturated images we see on Instagram. His images capture both triumph and defeat, making the ugly beautiful. So Nick, what's your title?
So my title is Becoming a Storyteller.
Excellent. That's a great title for a story. Take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Reichard, and tonight I want to talk about my journey as a storyteller. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, where there are absolutely no mountains or lobster rolls, yet I'm still very proud to be of my Midwest roots. Both of these photographs are portraits of me taken only 7 months apart. But before I mention what happened between them, I need to rewind to the year 2012. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, where I got a BFA in filmmaking. I was young and had no doubt that I was going to be the next Steven Spielberg, except in reality, I had no idea what I was really doing. So basically, graduating college was a rough wake-up call for me. So I felt lost. So the following year, I did what any other 23-year-old would do. I moved to Alaska, where I landed a job training sled dogs on a glacier, and I got to take a helicopter to work. It was as crazy as it sounds. And of course, I knew absolutely nothing about the outdoors or how to train a dog of my own, but I felt like this is where I needed to go. And for the first time in my life, I thought pursuing something other than being a famous film director. And maybe this was my chance to become a photographer. I thought since I could do everything myself, how hard could it be? But I knew nothing about making money, so that seemed impossible. So like most adults who wanted to continue their education, or in my case, avoid real world responsibilities, I decided to go to grad school. I thought to myself, if I get into an Ivy League program, people might take me more seriously. Not to my surprise, but things didn't work out that way, which looking back now, I'm super thankful for. Then something amazing happened. I got a job for a short time. I was hired to teach filmmaking at a high school summer program, and I hope my students learned something, but at least I know I did. Every day in class, I said how important it was to follow your dreams, and at that moment, I realized I needed to practice what I preach. So I took all the money I saved up from that summer and I built a bed in my car because that was clearly the smartest thing and most practical thing to do. But all jokes aside, I did have a plan, which was to make a short time-lapse film while living inside my Ford Edge. And I ended up spending over 2 months on the road. I drove to the most eastern point in North America, Cape Spear, Newfoundland. It was an incredible journey, one in which I saw the northern lights, tons of wildlife, and some of the most remote locations on the East Coast. By the end, I felt as if I saw more of Canada than I had my own country. That was when I started to rethink my priorities. And around that same time, I produced another short film which starred James Matteo, who's an incredible human and was a lead actor in HBO's Band of Brothers. While it seemed like my dream was coming true, deep down, I was really struggling to find myself. So I started to wonder where I belonged in this world. It was somewhere in Canada on a quiet road that I decided I was going to thru hike the entire Appalachian Trail. Now, this is very concerning for my parents more than anything else because they knew I was extremely out of shape and the heaviest I ever weighed in my life. They also knew I was scared of bears and spiders. So there I was, completely unprepared, but ready for the hardest adventure of my life. I even grew a beard beforehand, so I would look like a real mountain man right from the beginning. The trail became a place I could work on my art while taking care of my mind and body. This ended up being one of the most important decisions in my entire life. And it wasn't just because I decided to hike the AT that brought me on this path I am today, but my commitment to capture the entire thing on a few old and very heavy film cameras. I had no experience with analog photography, but deep down I knew it was the perfect fit. The trail was gritty and so was film. Both taught me a lot about patience, and with every step I learned something new. Somewhere along the way, I started to find what I was looking for in myself. Of course, hiking thousands of miles will definitely give you the time to think about things, but I wasn't capturing my own journey like I thought I would. It's hard to take selfies on 35mm film, I'm not gonna lie. But I started photographing people around me, and not just the moments which seemed pretty, but the real ones. And in total, I shot 149 rolls of film. 6 months after my journey, I found myself on Katahdin, something I never thought I could do and something I never wanted to do again because it was really hard. I had all the confidence I once lacked, but coming home was a lot harder than I expected. So now I had this stockpile of undeveloped film, which I had no idea how to process and let alone organize. It was quite overwhelming. And I found myself struggling in a very different way. I went from being a social butterfly to having panic attacks in public. I told myself the only thing I could do was keep hiking, but this time you're not going to stop. So 6 months later, I set off on the Pacific Crest Trail that spans from Mexico to Canada. But things were different this time. I enjoyed backpacking, and I lost my fear of bears, even though I still hated spiders. But the most important thing, I began to see the trail through a different light. I wasn't concerned about style or what was going to come of all this. I realized one of the reasons that allowed me to take authentic portraits of other hikers was because I happened to be doing the same thing they were doing. I felt like a method actor, like Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman, but like as a photographer. And in a 3-year stretch, I hiked over 6,500 miles. I thought of myself as a street photographer lost in nature. I continued on and traveled around the world, where I learned how easy it was to max out a credit card. I was really good at it. It was worth it though, because I pushed my photography in pursuit of creating a body of work that represented the way I see the world and not just the trail. And then everything changed. In 2018, I got married to my best friend, Lindsay. And in the same year, we moved across the country to Maine. And a few months later, we welcomed our beautiful daughter, Rosie, into the world. And being a parent forces you to slow down and live in the present moment, no matter how crazy it may be. When I look back at this crazy journey I've been on, I realize nothing happened according to plan. At times, I wanted to give up, but I didn't. And that has always been the most important thing, dreaming big and being patient. And in the words of Helen Keller, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicholas, for sharing the way you see the world. It's pretty beautiful. So our final presenter tonight is Faye Warner, and if you haven't decided on a wilderness buddy or a art collaboration partner from this group yet, you'll want to stick around for this one. Among Faye's talents are the ability to rescue you if you break your body in the woods, plus she studied psychology at USM, so she'll do it with a degree of calm. Friends say she's always prepared for an outdoor adventure and has even been an unintentional first responder to an auto accident. But even if you've never been rescued by Faye, you may be familiar with her magical mystery box here in Biddeford, or you will be once we can be in shared spaces again. Faye has 2 rabbits, Princess Bun Bun and Bing Crosby, and fosters other bunnies in need. So you might not be surprised that her last name, Warner, is an anagram to Warren, which is an intricate underground labyrinth where rabbits live. Faye is a consummate master of parties, collaboration, and loves immersive art, and she has an affinity to water. All sorts of immersion for this one. When she moved back to Maine from San Francisco, she spent weeks riding the train across the country, which is its own sort of immersion. And she intended to stop in New York City for 2 days, but got a more immersive 2-week experience there when her Amtrak route to Maine was flooded. She's not immersing herself in water. When she's not immersing herself in water and interactive art, she's dreaming about dancing and playing her green violin. Tonight, she's going to tell us about the little gem she's transforming in downtown Biddeford for us all to enjoy. Are you ready, Faye?
As ready as I'll ever be.
Excellent. Take it away.
So last year, Immersive Arts and I fell in love. I discovered Meow Wolf, and from that moment forward, there was no longer an ability for me to look backwards. I fell in love so much that last year I was at an odds with my career here in Maine, and I went to Vegas. I considered, could I live here? Could I work for Area 15, which technically doesn't exist, but that's a conversation for another day. And I really fell in love with Vegas. I fell in love with the beauty and the color of it, and just everything that Vegas had to offer. So I came back to Maine where I knew I had to be, and I had a conversation with my friend Sam. Her and I had been discussing for a while what kind of business we wanted to open. I told her about Meow Wolf, and she was like, all right, I'm game. How do we do this? From that moment forward, everything just kind of started to fall into place. I went to a panelist meeting at the PMA, and a woman I didn't know asked to sit next to me, Laura Dunn. And her and I had this conversation about the art scene in Maine and how I was kind of frustrated by it. And she said, you know, you should really get involved with Engine and check out the box. So I did. And I fell in love with the box immediately upon seeing it. And I knew that this was what I had to do. I had been looking at other properties in Biddeford, and it just didn't seem feasible or reasonable to take on those other properties. But this was it. This was my heart space. So I put in a proposal. I talked to Tammy and I said, all right, how do I do this? Next thing you know, I was at the State House getting my business all set up and doing all the things. And we signed that lease, and we decided that we were going to have our opening weekend on the weekend of March 7th. So we had just about 3 to 4 weeks to make it happen. So Sam and I got to work, and work we did. We worked our butts off. And the cool thing about this is, like I was saying, everything kind of started to fall into place. I started connecting with some of the most amazing frontiers of immersive artists that our nation has to offer. I had a phone call with Kelsey Carper of Factory Obscura in Oklahoma City, and just the amount of passion and dedication to collaboration amongst immersive artists in this country was just so beautiful. And, you know, I keep saying something amazing happened, but in the reality of this whole story, something amazing continued to happen. We had people show up for us. Community showed up for us. Friends and family showed up for us. Showed up for the box, this beautiful dream that we have. And work we did. We deconstructed, reconstructed, and put up an art installation, an immersive art installation within this box within 3 weeks. And I'm so glad we did, because, you know, we were being pushed in that direction for a reason, and here we are today. And I'm just so grateful for the amount of amazing creatives, the community, the collaborators, the people who showed up for us that had these skills, people I've known for years that could do crocheting like nobody's business, and I had no idea. It was amazing. One night we filled the box with 11 people, and I made them all close their eyes, and I walked them all through the experience of what the installation was going to be, and that pushed me forward. It was so delightful to have that many people in there and to share it with them. So we continued, and we continued, and we continued. We cut fabric, we, you know, tied knots of fabric on chicken wire until our hands couldn't work anymore. We both worked our full-time jobs, and sometimes we were at the box until midnight, and then we'd wake up the next morning and do it all over again. And this day specifically, when we put in that AstroTurf, I danced on it, and I was so excited. It was probably the best day in my book, because that's when things started to really form. That's when you could feel the beauty of springtime within that space. And of course, you know, like I keep saying, something amazing happened. Something did. We had amazing techno wizards that formed this Arduino that made something magic happen when you take this golden goose egg out of its alcove. And those are the little bits of magic that are all throughout that space within that installation. And it's gorgeous. Everywhere you look, there's a little bit of magic that somebody created. And I just love that. It's the best thing for me about that box, other than the community. So we pushed and we pushed and we pushed. And next thing you know, we were on main calling on NPR. Go check out the box. What is this magical mystery box? Don't touch the egg. Well, that kind of makes me want to touch the egg. I screamed when I heard that on the radio. I didn't know how to handle it. It was so exciting. And the coolest thing is that entire weekend, people we didn't know, people that weren't connected with Engine or with us showed up. And their curiosity, their excitement, their smiles, their whimsy and excitement, that beauty of that simplistic happiness that we as adults tend to lose a little bit, kind of came out. And it was so beautiful. And I don't even know where to begin because it was such an amazing weekend. We only had hopes for maybe 30 people. We didn't put through any sort of formal marketing or anything, just a little bit of social media and telling friends and family through word of mouth. And next thing you know, we had 52 people show up for opening weekend. We were blessed. And thank you so much to the community. It's been amazing. And we look forward to the future. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you for bringing more magic to Biddeford. All right, so as we've seen in tonight's stories, art has the power to heal, to illuminate, to entertain, and to fulfill. And if you're not making the time and budget in your life to make art and enjoy art, give it a shot. It might be the balm you're seeking. To that end, Engine is accepting donations and needs your support to continue to deliver community engaging events like tonight's and other programming for children and others in our community. If you're able, please consider a donation tonight through Engine's website, which is feedtheengine.org, feedtheengine.org. Or you could even email Tammy.
All right.
And I
This leaves a little lack of like body cues and, you know, eye contact and stuff like that. But I just want to say thank you to everyone that showed up to witness our trial run virtually. Also, we're going to do this again. Hopefully it'll be in person, but if it can't be, you know, we would love to have you tell your stories. And it doesn't have to have a theme, but, you know, there is obviously a theme of, you know, the quarantine and what you're doing to cope and how you're being creative. So if you want to PK, if you can tell your story in 6 minutes and 40 seconds, email me and we'd be glad to work with you. The next one is slated for July 15th, which is our 29th version. And yeah, hope to see you either in person or here. So thank you very much. And thanks to the presenters. Thanks to Chrystina. And that's it. Time to go. Have dinner.
Thank you.
Hooray!
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Yes. Good job, everyone.
Good
We did it.
job.
Woo!
Great
Bye,
job.
guys. Good night.
Good night, everyone.